Hi, I'm Jim Bergeron, and I'm pastor at Holy Cross Lutheran Church in Houston, Texas. This is a sermon for the first day of September 2024, the 15th Sunday of Pentecost, based on the 7th chapter of Mark, verses 1 through 8. Where have you been? Did you not tighten the cap on that jar or bottle? What took you so long? Who left the food out to spoil? These are some of the top guilt producing questions. And probably the oldest question that we can all remember is tried and true. Did you wash your hands? This question frames yet another scriptural text about eating. Dr. Gillian Feely Harnick, professor of anthropology at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, has written extensively on food and sharing it in the Christian and Jewish traditions. She observes several things. Number one, the power of the Lord shows in his ability to control food. Feeding is blessing. Bad food, like Herod's birthday banquet, is judgment or punishment. Number two, accept the Lord's food, and you accept his power and authority. Number three, don't limit the Lord by questioning his ability to feed you. Number four, eating joins people with the Lord in solidarity. Number five, who you share your food with in the world speaks of your relationship to the Lord. The food and the sharing of it is always the main course. It is only of secondary consideration what you use to eat your food. I mean, how nutritious is a spoon? Not very. Does a spoon have higher nutritional value than a chopsticks or fingers? What kind of nonsense question is that? What about all the pre meal hand washing protocols? Hygiene is important. Maybe rules for cleanness are a good idea if you're not starving. Richard Feynman was one of the 1965 Nobel Prize winners for physics. He actually didn't start talking until he was older than 3. In high school, his IQ tested at 125, a score that his biographer, James Gleitz, reported was merely respectable. And then when he was 15, he taught himself trigonometry, advanced algebra, infinite series, analytic geometry, both differential and integral calculus. Hey, I'm just quoting here. I have no clue what all that stuff is. Feynman was a brilliant scientist, part of the earlier nuclear research development of the atomic bomb at Los Alamos. He was also a very sophisticated, practical joker. He was featured in a BBC program called Horizon, and the mother of one of his students enjoyed that series very much, while really not being interested in science at all. But Feynman was good at translating into normal terms what he knew. For years, the young student had been trying to tell his mother about physics, and she just was not interested. He asked Dr. Feynman to drop her a note. So he did. Feynman wrote to her, "Dear Mrs. Chown, ignore your son's attempts to teach you physics. Physics isn't the most important thing. Love is. Best wishes, Richard Feynman." The Pharisees and scribes were admirable people. They devoted their whole lives to knowing good and evil and judging themselves and others by the standards that they had developed. They developed what's called the Great Tradition. In our text, it's identified as the tradition of the elders. It worked best for elite groups in the cities, but the standard was expected to be observed by everyone, even rural peasants, fishermen, or travelers who perhaps didn't have much access to water or whose work kept them in constant contact with unclean things, dead animals, unclean ones. Those outgroups of people developed a little tradition which still honored the practice of eating with the Lord and his people, but which adapted itself to the harsh realities of peasant life. In the late summer in the 1960s, you could find me at 7 in the morning on a tractor pulling a plow, mulching 160 acres by turning over thousands of tons of wheat stubble and dirt. I never wore my Sunday suit with a clean hanky on that yellow monster Minneapolis Moline tractor that Dad took the seat off of so I wouldn't fall asleep standing on the platform. Mom would bring out dinner at noon to check on me. There was no shade, so I'd sit under the tailgate of the truck to eat. 105 degrees, 20-mile-per-hour wind blowing dust on my bologna sandwich, apple, and Three Musketeers bar. It was a fine day. I had brought a gallon of water in the morning for all day. Do you think I'm going to waste that water by washing my hands? That would be insane. I need that water to live. The word Pharisee means interpreter or separated one. He lived and acted apart from ordinary people to concentrate on the keeping of religious regulations. This to him was goodness. It's what God desired. They were good guys, but sometimes with self-justifying questions, they maybe got under Jesus' skin by tending to the law and forgetting about the people. Big on form, doing it the right way. After all, if somebody doesn't stand up for good taste, what will happen to us? Pharisees were opera goers in a world that was cranking out urban rap and death metal. They watched masterpiece theater, while the tacky neighbors were watching Real Housewives of the State Jail. Jesus, in affirming the so-called little tradition, brings the lower caste group into equal table fellowship with the highest caste group. Jesus was the mediator between two highly disparate groups of people who normally would not be able to agree on anything, much less get together over lunch to talk about it. Conversation over any meal was non-negotiable from the higher caste side of the equation. But the status of outcasts was changed. Jesus redeemed them. The sign he offered, the witness of his dining across caste lines, is redemptive. A redemption's life-affirming in all circumstances, not just in conditions of attempted human perfection. Redemption means becoming grateful even for sorrow. It is finding the silver lining in that desperately challenging growth experience. Nice euphemism for a really hard time. Redemption's that place where you can see the benefit of your struggle and the bonus of your exhausted tears. The Pharisees thought lower class struggles and issues disqualified people from legitimate fellowship with the Lord. In finding evil in many places and practices, they missed the point. Henry David Thoreau said, "For every 1,000 hacking at the leaves of evil, there is one striking at the root." Jesus' detractors are mostly concerned about what to eat and how to eat it, with compliance, guaranteeing some kind of salvific redemption for dessert. Jesus simply points out that it's not what goes into someone, but instead what comes out of them that tells more about their character. I mean, we've all seen people recognized as saints still be rude to their waiters or cashiers or demeaning to those who serve them. It hurts to see that. It's disheartening. It's ungrateful. For the Pharisees, picking at Jesus, hand washing has become a bullet point. The real point is that hand washing is great for health and hygiene. It may save you from soil-borne parasites and a variety of infectious germs people didn't even know about back then, but it does not mark a successful transaction guaranteeing God's blessing. Watch out for those folks who report their spiritual condition to you when all you said was, "Hi, how are you?" And the reply is, "I'm blessed." Now you've encountered someone who simply hasn't quite thought through all the real life aspects of Jesus on the cross, the blessed Son of God. Just figures that following some rules is a nice transactional reward from God for saying that they're on the right team. Pray for them. Be there for them when they have a bad day. Of course, we're blessed. We're living in America. We won the zygote drop zone geographic lotteries by being born here. How do you think the rest of the world feels about their blessing level? Being blessed is being faithful to God in all circumstances and not just happy about personal achievements in a small arena. There are a lot of little superstitious things that we do, hoping upon hope that if we do them, God will be with us, and fearing that if we don't, God will abandon us. God doesn't work that way. He came to redeem the unclean and the stained. Only God can take that letter T in the word stained and move it 3 letters to the right to make the word sainted. He came to redeem our guilt, shame, and embarrassing weakness, where no code or set of rules could do that trick. Codes are good. They protect human life. They also are subject to selective enforcement. The rule is wash your hands. Yes, in the blood of the Lamb. Amen.